Eurobox presents Where the Heart Isn't, written by Ileana Stoica. In Where the Heart Isn't, Redefining Home, Ileana Stoica invites readers into a powerful story that is at once intimate and universal. Blending memoir and social reflection, she explores the meaning of home through the lens of an immigrant, a scientist, a mother, and a voice of Generation X. Let's welcome the author, who's our special guest today, to present us her newest book. Hi, Ileana, welcome. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Hello, Ginevra. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Europe Books, for this whole project.
So let's start from the inspiration to start writing this book. Is there a particular moment in your life that led you to the writing of this work?
There isn't just one moment. There have been moments when it did cross my mind, oh, what an interesting occurrence. I should capture this in a book perhaps one day, but I always kept putting it off on the back burner, so to speak, and they accumulated. And because I'm trained as a physicist originally, really, I think of it as reaching a critical mass. So they reached a critical mass. There was the pandemic, which forced all of us to take it slowly, take that long overdue look in the mirror and self-reflect, and I did that too. But nothing much happened until really I became middle-aged. It's a story, it's a coming of age, but it's a coming of middle-aged story, this book of mine. And so it was on the cusp of 50 that I was pleasantly surprised to see that I have this drive to be creative and express myself. And this is how this whole book came about. But it was really an act of patience, like I've said. So for some of the events, I have waited 10, 20, 30 years to recount the story. It was also an act of courage, because it takes a lot of honesty, first of all, to myself, but also to my readers, to put it all together like this. This is not... I hope it's a memoir that is humorous in places, entertaining perhaps, engaging, but it's not sanitized, and sometimes it is actually quite raw. So I had to find a good vantage point, and I think middle age gave me that. It was that unique vantage point of still being involved, creative, but at the same time having had a bit of perspective on things, having accumulated that insight that only time gives us sometimes. And so that's kind of wrapping up the whole context of how I came to write this book.
Okay, is there a specific target for this book, or is this a book for anyone? I ask this because we mentioned the social reflection part.
Absolutely. So it is dedicated to Generation X. It's dedicated to the self-reliant spirit of Generation X, but it's not only for Generation X. And in fact, it's for everyone, really. And towards the end of the book, so let's say the first half of the book is the memoir, it's a collection of stories, but the second half is more of an analysis. It's myself trying to distill my experiences into some wisdom that can be imparted to people who are very different from me. And I have to say that towards the end of the book, when I give my nuggets of wisdom, I had in mind mostly generation Gen Z, because we Gen X are the parents that are raising now Gen Z. And I did write that last part with them in mind. So I think it is for people like me who are on the cusp of middle age and are wondering, okay, what's next? What's on the other side? But it's also for younger people who are embarking, let's say, aspiring academics, young mothers who are wondering, how are we ever going to do it all and be all that this world expects of us? And the answer is, you don't have to. You will see when you reach your 50s, that your main task is to alchemize your experiences and really be yourself, or as true to yourself as you possibly can. So it's really for everyone who wants to engage in this act of self-reflection and redefinition. And I think it was Carl Jung who said, if you don't know who you are, and the world will ask you, and I'm paraphrasing, and if you don't know the answer, they will tell you who you are. I think this book is for everyone who wants to find their own answer and tell the world, well, this is who I am. This is my narrative. This is my story. This is where I'm going. So it's really for a broad range of people, I
Right.
think.
And what about the feedbacks? I mean, did you have a feedback that you wished in mind? And after the publication of the book, did you recognize this feedback by your readers?
Yes, I did have a feedback, in particular from one reviewer. So first of all, the book hasn't reached a large audience yet. So the most of the feedback that I've got is from my beta readers, from reviewers, from friends, family, colleagues. But there was one piece of feedback. There was somebody who said, she's not shouting from the rooftops. She does show that quiet resilience, but she's doing it quietly. And she doesn't seek pity. She doesn't seek admiration. And when I read that, I have to say it brought tears to my eyes. In fact, every time I read feedback, because I'm a first-time author, it's quite emotive. But that particular piece of feedback, and I thought, yes, that's exactly what it is. Even when I describe things that perhaps, look like, okay, that's a bit of an injustice here that she's talking about, or quite the contrary, she's being proud of herself here. I hope I'm keeping the right line, and that I'm not eliciting feelings that I don't want to. And I hope I'm engaging people in the right way, namely to think about things more rather than feel sympathy or any kind of such thing.
Very, very quickly, we know that you're already working on a new project. Can you anticipate us something?
Yes. So I hope we'll pick up this conversation over the next month. It is a book so this one is a fiction book, and I only got the confidence to embark on this project because of my first book coming out. So that was big for me. And I'm sort of picking up here where I left with a memoir. I'm talking about search for home. I'm talking about individual touching the collective. So here with this book, which is called En Passant, I am touching on how the 2008 global financial crisis has impacted people's lives in a very personal, and how the global crisis juxtaposes onto a personal crisis of vision, of love, of faith. So it is a book of fiction, but it is heavily inspired from my life, the life of myself and my family in London in the midst of this storm in the financial world in 2008. And I hope that it's a cinematic book, it's a multi-layered book that will attract people, because the thing is, as a scientist, we've been taught to look at the facts, look at the data, and yes, we do that. But even physics will tell you at some point, even with most observations possible, you don't know. There's the so-called uncertainty principle. So what do you do when you know you don't know? I suppose reading a good story can fill in some of the gaps. There's no better form of education, I think, than a good story. And if we don't study history, people say, I don't remember who, those who don't study history are bound to repeat it. And so let's hope that we can do better than that by blending our capacity to understand the facts with our capacity to emotionally connect, that we won't repeat the mistakes of the past.
Wonderful. So we look forward to reading more from you. Thank you, Ileana. Thank you again for your time, and we wish you best luck with your book.
Thank you, and thanks again for having me today.
Where the Heart Isn't, Redefining Home, written by Ileana Stoica, is now available in bookstores and digital platforms. It's a publication by Eurobox.